Good day, guys. Austin here, and in this one today, I've got a very special day. Today is a day that I've managed to run Shenmue in 4K without any slowdowns, graphical issues, or anything like that going on. This has been done time and time before. Much of the things, or many of the things, should I say, have been done by many people time and time before. But to get everything to work all together, as I'm showing you now, I never managed to do it. Not until DEMUL worked their magic. Now, in the last month or so, I believe the 11th November 2017 of the date of me recording this video, DEMUL made the last update, and it's opened a can of worms that I'm reveling in. It is absolutely beautiful. It's brought Shenmue, a game which is probably my most beloved game of all time. It's now brought it to this kind of standard. I'm running this game widescreen. I'm running the widescreen hacked version. It's nothing crazy going on. It's just the fact that many of the guys over at Shenmue Dojo, they managed to alter the hex value so it renders natively at 16:9, which means that you haven't got those black bars on the side. It also means that using the most current version, you haven't got no pop-ins on the side as well, which is absolutely beautiful. Now, to enhance that even more, I'm running this on DEMUL, running at 2160p, true 4K resolution, and this is absolutely beautiful. Now, 4K has been done before many times, especially using null DC. Problem is, by using that emulator, if you was to look at Ryo's hair right now, it would be see-through. It would have graphical glitches, and his head would literally be see-through. You could see his eyeballs, and it's not exactly a good way to go. Now, in just a second, I'll talk you through all the settings that I've done to enable me to achieve these kind of settings and this kind of performance. But for now, absolutely beautiful. There's only a couple of things that I would like to bring to this tea party. One of them would be obviously graphical enhancements in terms of textures. This is a 17-year-old, if not 18-year-old game now, and although there's no jaggies at all running this kind of resolution, the textures are still hampered by the low resolution. Many of them, to be honest, because this was 480p as standard, the resolution in terms of the textures isn't that bad, but in certain spots you can notice it. But to get this to this kind of level, no slowdown, no glitches, beautiful. Now, if I was to run this in an older version of DEMUL, it impacted the system too much. There was a lot of issues when it comes to caching the game as it's running, so you get quite a lot of stutters. As my dad would be talking now, he would be giving like some crazy devil talk because sometimes the speech doesn't catch up with the frame rate. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Now, what the DEMUL guys have done, and again, we'll talk about this in detail as we're going through the emulator itself, is beautiful. But for now, revel in this, guys. Revel at the magic that DEMUL has brought to us. It's a brand new day for Dreamcast. It's a brand new day for Shenmue, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Wait.
It's under the cherry tree.
It's buried under the cherry tree.
Look at Landy. Look how detailed he is. Got no jaggies on him at all. He's jaggyless. We'll call him Jaggyless Landy from now on. That's quite the mouthful.
Do you remember Chao Sun Ming?
But yeah, as we talked about, textures, I would love them to be enhanced. The only other thing that would be probably nice to bring to the party, but isn't essential, especially on a cinematic game such as this, would be 60 frames per second. Now, they have managed to hack Shenmue to run 60 frames per second, but the problem is that it seems the gameplay is tied to the frame rate, so by enhancing, well, to run it at 60 frames per second, you get twice the speed because it's twice the frame rate. So unless someone pulls magic out of somewhere, looks like we're always going to be stuck to 30 frames per second. Who knows though, if they do a remastered or something like this, I'm sure when Shenmue 3 comes out, they've got some kind of plans to bring this to the modern day culture, unless they think of something crazy going on with the storyline. But absolutely beautiful. Those are the only two flaws that I can still see remaining. Other than that, this is now the definitive way to play Shenmue. and I'm playing it right now, and I'm absolutely loving it. Come on, Ryu, make it to your dad. Listen to his final words. I should be talking through the settings now, but I love this game so much. We're gonna see it through. Watch his dad die.
Forgive me for leaving you alone.
Friends.
What are you saying?
Keep
Father!
close.
Your friends. Keep friends.
Oh well, we're close. It would have sounded better if we keep him
You
close.
love close to you.
Oh well,
No.
I paraphrased it.
Father!
Father!
No!
So there we go then, guys. That is the intro running 4K beautifully. No glitches, no hang-ups, widescreen. Everything that I've ever wanted Shenmue to run is now running beautifully. Now let's go through some settings. Now I'm going to minimize the emulator. This will now run it in a windowed 4x3. It may crash because I've got about 50 screen recordings going on, mic recordings, all kinds of stuff. So it's not going to be the emulator. If it does crash, it's going to be, if anything, my PC going haywire. Right, so here is DEMUL, the actual raw files as it is. As you can see, it was released on the 11th of November 2017, 5 o'clock if anyone's interested, but that doesn't make any difference. Let's go through some of the settings that I've enabled to get it to run to this kind of standard on my rig. Now, my specifications are in the description down below. Feel free to peruse at your own leisure. For now, let's go into, we'll talk about plugins and paths in just a second because there's some things that I need to bring up, but now let's look at the settings. Now in video settings, to enable this to run at 4K, I've had to use the older version of the graphical plugin. So this is running DirectX 11, but it's the older version, which means that some of the options are different. Now, when you download the emulator itself, I'll put links in the description down below from the official website. If you run it straight away, it will use the newer version of DirectX 11, but the older one is included. You just have to use it from the drop-down box. Again, I'll talk about that in just a second. But let's go through the settings that I've enabled on this older plugin to enable it to run to this kind of standard on this newer version of the emulator. It's hard for me to explain, isn't it? Okay, first off, window resolution makes no difference about this because, well, it's running on your PC. So I've got it running at 1080. However, the thing that does impact it is this, the internal resolution. This is how the game is actually brought to us. So as you can see, I've got this at ×6, maximum that I can get going on here. Now, me messing around with this kind of stuff may make stutters inside the game. Ignore all that. It will be stable when you run it from wherever you're running through. Other than that then, I've disabled VSync. Some of you, depending on what kind of system you're running, you may have to enable it. This will have an impact on your system, so be aware of that. Many of the settings that we're going to cover now are system specific. So depending on what kind of rig you're running, depending on, I don't know, it's emulation in it, so it depends what star sign we're in, what's your date of birth. That's the kind of stuff that you have to consider when you're in the world of emulation. But I'll show you what I've got, and then you can draw comparisons between this and your rig, the game that you're playing, blah de blah. So VSync disabled for me. I've got full screen enabled, but it makes no difference. But as soon as you load it up, it will go to full screen. But as you can see, I've just gone into windowed mode to show you the settings. Internal resolution, we've pumped this up to 6. Now, one of the settings that we got going on here is max layers. Now, depending on the game that you run in, will depend on the kind of max layers that you want to get the max out of the game. In other words, some glitches may happen if you turn this down too low. Some people's systems won't be able to go too high, depending on what the internal resolution is. So these two are things that you're going to have to fiddle around with to find the best case scenario for you. Now, Shenmue seems to run fine, max layer set to 16. However, at some points throughout the game, there is like a crazy smoke effect in some of the cutscenes. By running at 16, there is minor graphical glitches while that's going on. So to get the full fidelity of this, you will have to run it at 32. That's the minimum to get everything running to maximum. The problem is that for me to run at 32, I then have to turn the internal resolution down or I get graphical issues. I'll show you that now. First off, let's get into the game so I can show you. Click on the screen. Come on. Okay. So the gameplay is looking squished right now because, like I said, I'm running the widescreen hacked version of the game, and because the game window is running at 4:3, it squished the game into some crazy little aspect ratio. So let's get outside. His Nan or whatever it is will start whinging at him, probably give him an allowance like she always does. She's so depressing. Every day she just comes over and whinges at you. Anyway, enough of that. While that's going on, let's talk about these. Okay, so as you can see, everything is running hunky-dory right now. All is good in the world of Shenmue. However, if I was to then turn this up to 32, the way that I would want to play it, artifacts happen, glitches happen. That's bad news. However, if I was to then turn this down to 5x resolution, which is still what, UHD I suppose, and probably the best experience for all this, it's perfect again. So all is good. So this kind of stuff, I can't say what the magical solution is for you guys. Some of you may be able to push this all the way to 6x. You may be able to push this all the way down up to 64. Not that there's any need for most games. In fact, I don't know any games that are hampered by putting it to 64. Or improve, should I say, turn it to 64. Have a play around. Every game's different. I haven't managed to play every game in the Dreamcast library up till now on this, so I don't know. Anyway, 32 is golden. 5x resolution seems to be the happy medium for me. I mean, unless I'm playing this on my 60-inch TV downstairs in 4K, then it's not going to make much difference to me. So, yeah, we're looking good on that. This kind of stuff, aspect ratio, again, it depends on how you want to run your game. Because I'm running the widescreen hack, I want to run this when it's full screen at a 16:9. I don't want it to run 4:3, otherwise it will just give me this squish thing in a widescreen format, but with black bars on the side. For example, that, but obviously made widescreen. Stretch is the same as, well, it all depends on the monitor that you're running and the aspect ratio of such. For me though, I'm going to whack this on 16:9. This kind of stuff, again, depends on the system that you guys are running. For me, cartoon is a nice thing. FXAA, anti-aliasing basically, or anti-aliasing, whatever you guys call it in the US, or people who do speak it properly. Again, this is up to you guys. I have noticed that when you're in the outside environment, trees and things like that look beautiful with the AA turned on. Even 2 passes of it looks absolutely beautiful. But then when you start getting into the town and looking at the signage and all that kind of stuff, things look a little bit fuzzy. So for me, I probably would disable this. However, cartoon, for some reason, I like this. It gives it a little bit of boost when it comes to the color saturation. It just seems to pop a little bit more, so I do like cartoon on. There's loads of options that you can choose here to give all kinds of different effects on the screen. Makes no difference to you, and it's all down to personal preference. I haven't noticed much of an impact for me when changing all this kind of stuff. I suppose anti-aliasing may have a little bit of impact on people's systems. Again, depends on what you're running. But for me, I like cartoon on. But turning it off, as you can see, just gives it a little bit more dull tone when it's off. So that's off and that's on. I like cartoon, pops out a little bit more. You can see more when you're outside. I'll show you that in just a second. When it comes to the rest of the stuff then, yeah, this is if, again, troublesome games or if your system is lacking in some kind of way. When you first load the game up, or the emulator should I say, and actually go into a game, this is normally enabled as standard. Now, this is something that actually helps games to run. It's more for, what, as far as I'm aware, for games that are more into shmups or bullet hell games where there's a lot of things moving on the screen at one time. It kind of, well, it enables them to work the way they should. However, when you're in these kind of games, and to be honest, 99% of the other games, disabling this makes zero impact in terms of gameplay, but makes a hell of a lot of impact on your system resources. So enabling it will bring it to its knees if you're struggling to run the emulator. Disabling it will give you a hell of a lot of speed up if you're struggling. So VSync and Blitter are 2 of the ones that you want to disable if you're struggling. Again though, go through the settings, change the internal resolution, all that kind of stuff, and find what's best for you. Okay, so we've got that up to where we want to go. Let's head outside and take it into the world of Shemnu. Okay, now I'll show you what's going on with these Now I'll show you what's going on with the color saturation and the anti-aliasing. This is where you'd notice it more. When it comes to the trees and things like that, as you can see, it's hard for me to show you now because we're running on a squish screen. We are getting jaggies because it's being squished. But a lot of these edges of the trees and things will be softened when you've got the anti-aliasing on. But like I said, this has a knock-on effect, and the caveat is that when you get into the town areas, you'll notice more of a blurring on some of the signage that's going on. It's just the way it is. So it's up to you guys, but for me, I like it off. Best of both worlds. And as you can see with the cartoon, turn off and on. Off makes it a bit more dull, a bit more pastel-like. Turning it on just pops it out a little bit more, as you can see. Now you can even do it 2 times on that. So instead of anti-aliasing, you've got 2 times cartoon, which makes it pop even more. In fact, it's blinding me. I'm blinded by the sun right now. So 1 on, all off. It's up to you. Have a play around. It's all personal preference, this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to keep 1 on for now. Let's exit out of here. Cancel, exit. Slow DEMUL, and I'll show you how the new version of the graphical plugin plays in with this, because I can't load this up while the game's running. So we'll go into config, plugins and paths. When you first launch DEMUL for the first time, this is what you'll be greeted with. It will ask you to configure all this kind of stuff, so it's probably a good idea to go through this now. Video plugin. As you can see, I'm using GPUDX or DirectX 11 old. It's the older version, even though I'm running the newer version of DEMUL. As standard, it will launch with DirectX 11, the standard version. Now, what this gives us is different options when it comes to the video plugin side of options. So yeah, we'll talk about them in a second. When it comes to launching your games, you want to be going through GDR image. Now this is for your Dreamcast side of life. If you were going to play the arcade versions of games or any arcade games, go for the CHD and use the MAME set of ROMs. There is also a DEMUL set as well, so it's up to you. Depends on where your games are coming from. But for me, with my GDI ROMs and CDI ROMs, I want to be using the image version because it just plays better that way. Makes no difference with all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's no options to play with here anyway. The only other thing is, obviously, this is DEMUL and Dreamcast. It requires a BIOS file, in other words, the BIOS for Dreamcast, in order for it to work. These can be put anywhere. All the rest of the plugins could and should be left as standard, but when it comes to the ROMs and BIOS paths, it makes no difference where your ROMs are because you can launch it from within the file, but your BIOS files need to be put somewhere on your computer and then put add and then locate them on your computer, put the file there, and it should find it. When you go to launch your Dreamcast or any other system, it should launch and you'll have no problems whatsoever. Okay, now we've talked about that. Now let's go through the new version of the GPU DirectX 11 plugin. Config, video. Okay, so this is the other version, and as you can see, the reason why I chose to use the older version is because the internal resolution and the shader effects aren't yet enabled on this new version. Now this new version has been out for some time, quite a few months now, but still as of yet we haven't got these options available to us, which would be awesome because, well, that's how you get the most out of an emulator really. Of course I could play these games on my Dreamcast, no problem whatsoever, but internal resolution and enhancing games in certain ways kind of gives us the, well, it's why a lot of us emulate, especially when it comes to the more modern 3D based games. So having those kind of options enabled to us soon would, well, to be honest, for me, would make a big party time. So hopefully the developers will work on that, but for now we're stuck with the way that we got it. So all the rest of the stuff is basically the same, max layers, all that kind of stuff. We've got a few different tweaks, hacks, all that kind of stuff that we can go on with. But again, it's all down to personal preference, depends on what system you're running, what games you're playing, and all that kind of stuff. I think something that I didn't touch on before was the rotate bit in the other plugin. This is to do with the arcade side of life. Obviously, different arcade games have different setups where the screens may be tilted horizontally, vertically, with your shmups and things like that. That's for emulating that kind of setup. So yeah, at least now we know what's going on, and I think we've just about sorted that out. So that is DEMUL, the new version up and running. We've managed to get Shemnu running, and hopefully now we've covered some of the settings, you can now go forth and put that into action with some of the other games. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think of it, how these new plugins are working, how the new build is working with various different games. I'm still playing catch up with a lot of the games and a lot of these settings. If there's something you would like me to cover, or if you think I've done something wrong in this video, let me know in the comments down below and we'll try and get through all this together. But guys, that is the magic done today. It's been a pleasure as always bringing this to you. Well, please like, please subscribe, please do all the things in this magical world where Shemnu is finally given to us in 4K with no glitches, no black bars, and magical in everything it does. Does that even make sense? I got no idea. It's late, it's a long video. But most of all, guys, most of all, you guys have a good day. Laters!